Okay, week one of the NFL season just wrapped up, so let me recap and give you my notes on all the primetime games and the Cowboys game. Okay, our first game up is the Cowboys at the Eagles. This was the season opener. The Eagles are raising the banner, and Saquon really looked different against that Cowboys run defense. I know a lot of people were saying that the Cowboys run defense was bad and the Kenny Clark wouldn't help that much. Well, they this was a Cowboys team that in week 3 of last year with Micah Parsons allowed over 150 yards to Derrick Henry and the Baltimore Ravens. And so I think the Kenny Clark addition worked out pretty good. But considering what Micah did and got a sack on Sunday for the Packers, we'll see. And then without Jalen Carter, this run defense really looked pretty bad. Like, I don't know if it was just Jalen Carter, because I know this Eagles team lost a lot of players in the offseason. Like Milton Williams, maybe that's his name. I don't know. But yeah, the Cowboys were able to have that long run for Miles Sanders and get Javonte Williams 2 touchdowns and over 50 yards. So this Cowboys defense, no, not Cowboys defense, this Cowboys offense, especially in the run game, is looking pretty good. So much so, even I am picking up Javonte Williams in fantasy football. Then for the Cowboys, I know that other stuff was kind of focused on the Eagles, but yeah, like I said, the run game looks much better than I expected. The aside from the Miles Sanders fumble, it was good. Again, the run defense was great. Being able to hold Saquon Barkley to 60 yards when last year, like I said, we allowed Derrick Henry over 150. And as long as this Cowboys team can stay in the game and be in it to win it in the final 2 minutes, especially against teams like the Eagles, the Packers, the Lions, and all those frontrunners for the NFC title, then this team will win a lot of games. Okay, now moving on to Chiefs at Chargers. Although this was not, it was counted as a Chargers home game, but it was actually in Brazil. The final score to this one ended up being Chargers win 21-17. And the big story for the Chiefs was Xavier Worthy. And this wide receiver room is very quickly thinning. Depending on how long Worthy stays out, I know he dislocated his shoulder. And with Rice out, this Chiefs wide receiver room, I know they have Hollywood Brown. Juju Smith Schuster was a huge part in them getting on that comeback. When I was watching the game, he had a couple big plays, like 10-yard throws that really kept him in the game. And then we had the Chiefs seem like they're losing some of their, like last year they started 9-0, 10-0, something like that. But the Super Bowl and then tonight, well, not tonight. I wrote it then, but you get the point. Something is going wrong. They started down 22-0 in the Super Bowl, and tonight they got, well, not tonight. Well, that's just how I have it in my notes. They got down 10-0 against the Chargers, and we're stuck having to chase the Chargers all night. Then for the Chargers, Quentin Johnston. That was the big storyline. Justin Herbert and Quentin Johnston, they found something. Because Quentin Johnston had 2 touchdowns, and we finally saw what we all thought Quentin Johnston was going to be coming out of college. He can finally catch a football. After all this time, he can. The Chargers showed that they are going to compete for not only the AFC West, but maybe the Chargers are a dark horse to be the AFC champions. Because based on what I saw, they just went and said, you know what? We know the Chiefs have been in like 7 straight AFC title games, and we know that the Chiefs pretty much own the AFC, and to win the AFC, you're going to have to get past them. So we're going to show we can get past the Chiefs. And then if Herbert plays like that every week, the Chargers could go to the Super Bowl. And then, especially with Quentin Johnston getting his like breakout game is what I'm going to call it, and then Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey, this wide receiver room is looking pretty good. And then we move on to Sunday Night Football. The Baltimore Ravens, in an AFC divisional round rematch, have to go into Buffalo, and they almost pull off a win. And I thought they were going to win. Actually, I was watching the game, and someone they looked at me and said, you know what? We can go to bed. We already know who's winning this game because the Ravens were up 15 points. And then I come in the room 10 minutes later and it's like, oh, it's 38-40 and the Bills are about to win the game. Josh Allen led the Bills on a comeback and ended up setting up the Matt Prater game-winning field goal. Derrick Henry, though, can we talk about him for a second? Because he continued at the age, I believe he will either be 31 this season or is 31. And most running backs, the majority of the running backs at age 31, they're going for 500-yard to 1,000-yard seasons. Derrick Henry at age 30 last year almost put up 2,000 yards at age 30. And so this this Ravens team, the run game is a huge part of what they're going to do. Yeah, but this game was insane. As I talked about, the Bills come from behind and get the win 40-41. What a high scoring game. This may be in contention for the game of the year. But yeah, Josh Allen continues where he left off last year. And some people say, oh, Josh Allen didn't deserve the MVP. As well as me, I think it should have gone to Lamar. But we have to give credit to Josh Allen. Like Lamar, we can argue the Ravens wouldn't have been in this game if not for Derrick Henry. And I think 150 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. And speaking of the run defense, that was non existent tonight. Well, not tonight. You get the point. I wrote these notes during the game. But yeah, they got Joey Bosa over the offseason, but during that game, it did not show. Every 2 seconds, Derrick Henry was going 50 yards down the field, and it's exactly what he did to the Bills last year. On that first play of the game, in their week 3 matchup, he just ran 87 yards for the touchdown. And that's the thing with Derrick Henry. If you let him go into the open field, you can say goodbye because he is gone. Now we move on to Monday Night Football. J.J. McCarthy's first game, although he's a second-year player, tore that meniscus last year, had to have surgery on it, and missed the entire season. So realistically, we were thinking he should perform better than what a rookie QB would do because he's had 2 years, well, not 2 years, 2 years to learn the playbook and figure out the offense and really develop those connections with his players, that he should be pretty good. And I feel like it took him a while to settle in, but once he settled in that fourth quarter, he was lights out and led the Vikings on a comeback to end up getting the W. 27-24. Vikings win. And Aaron Jones could be fading as the Vikings gave Jordan Mason, 7 more carries than him, and Jordan Mason also got more yards than him. But Aaron Jones' only thing is he did get that amazing ball by J.J. McCarthy to get the receiving touchdown. And probably if the Vikings don't get that touchdown, they don't win that game. So Aaron Jones, although he didn't contribute on the ground, he did contribute in a way. But yeah, for the Bears, again, last season they started 4-2 and they just couldn't end out the season. On Monday night, the Bears go through 3 quarters commanding, and they couldn't finish it out. The Bears, Ben Johnson, on those first 3 quarters, we were all like, hold on. Ben Johnson could actually help this offense and lead them maybe to the playoffs. But in that fourth quarter, they could not get anything going. And like I said, the Vikings just surged. Okay, now for some of my questions heading into week 2. My first question is, are the Steelers and Jets legit? They had a shootout, 34-32. And those 2 teams were 2 of the teams who were like, okay, the Jets are probably going to be last in their division. And then the Steelers are probably going to be 9-8. Can those teams really emerge themselves as competitors in the AFC and maybe even contend for the wild card spot? My next question is, again, are the Colts legit? They go out there and blow out a Miami Dolphins team that didn't look pretty good. And if they can win in week 2, which I don't know who they're playing, and I'll have to look at it, but if they can keep them going, then this Colts team can really be a threat. And especially if Daniel Jones can develop good relationships with those players and maybe give the Colts a playoff spot. But they will go into Denver, I believe, next week. And that'll be a tough game. Denver could be in contention for that AFC West. And we'll see. And then another question I have is who the Colts beat? The Dolphins. What is going on with that Dolphins team? Like, they have Tyreek Hill, they have Tua, and we saw a couple years ago when Tua was healthy, this Dolphins team was like 8-2. And all of a sudden, when Tua's healthy, Jalen Waddle's healthy, Tyreek Hill's healthy, then all of a sudden they're losing 33-8 to Daniel Jones. And so that is concerning if you're a Dolphins fan. And then some other questions are, again, this is week 1. Most of these questions are just going to be who is legit and who is not legit. Because there's not much you can say from week 1. But another question I have for the Cowboys is, what are we going to look like in terms of George Pickens getting the ball? Because we have 2 legit wide receivers now. But CeeDee Lamb had like 100 yards on Thursday night. And George Pickens only had like 30. So you got to think, okay, are we going to spread the ball around? But the Eagles, not to bash the Eagles or anything, but hey, A.J. Brown got 1 catch and Devonta Smith got like 1.5 fantasy points. So Eagles aren't doing too much better. So that's good to hear as a Cowboys fan. And then we do have, I think, what is going on with the NFC North is another question I have. Because the Lions got blown out by the Packers. The Vikings and Bears game was very interesting. Because at one point it was, oh, the Bears are great and Ben Johnson is leading this offense. And then at another point it's, oh, J.J. McCarthy leads the Vikings on this amazing comeback and they could be a playoff team. So I ultimately think that this could be the Packers winning the division now. But if the Lions just had a bad week 1 and could turn it around, I think this Lions team should be the NFC North favorite. Okay, so that is all for my week 1 analysis and breakdown. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.